"What do you mean there's an extra charge just to check in early?" the woman at the front desk asked, her voice tight. "I've been traveling for 9 hours." Xavier Morgan, dressed in beige slacks and a button-up shirt with the hotel's Bellhop logo stitched over his chest, tightened his grip on the suitcase he was holding. He wasn't supposed to be listening, but he was. He'd bought the boutique hotel chain 7 years ago, back when it had only 3 locations. Now there were 17, scattered across the West Coast, and the business was booming, or so the reports said. But lately, customer complaints from location 14, this one in Santa Rosa, had started to stack up. Nothing huge, just odd reviews. Guests being treated differently, odd fees not listed online, and a few employees quitting without notice. The front desk manager's name kept popping up, but no one would say much, so Xavier flew in under the radar. He'd never met anyone at this location in person. Most of the hiring had been handled by district-level staff. And with the new Bellhop uniform, a pair of glasses, and a clean shave, he looked nothing like the man on the company's website. No one suspected a thing. "Ma'am," the front desk manager said curtly, "our luxury early check-in option is offered to guests who want to skip the standard wait. It's $40. "That's not listed anywhere," the guest said, clearly annoyed. "You must have missed it," said the manager. Xavier's stomach tightened. He set the suitcase down for a second and glanced at the manager's name tag. Miles. He looked sharp, pressed suit, slick hair. But the tone he used, cold, dismissive. Like this woman was wasting his time. Xavier didn't say anything. Not yet. Instead, he turned back toward the front door where another guest was just stepping out of a cab. He grabbed the bags quickly, wheeled them inside, and smiled. "Welcome," he said. "I'll get these to your room," the guest smiled back. "Thanks, man, appreciate you." By noon, Xavier had been up and down the elevator more than 30 times. The other bellhop, a young guy named Nico, was out sick. "Food poisoning," the housekeeper had said. "He's the only one on your shift." "Sorry, man." So Xavier kept going, hauling bags, opening doors, memorizing room numbers. Every now and then, he'd catch Miles talking to guests with that same clipped voice. A few guests seemed fine with the luxury check-ins. Others looked confused, even frustrated. One couple whispered about how they were charged $50 just for a better view. By mid-afternoon, Xavier was sweating. He stepped into the back hallway to grab a bottle of water and ran into a woman with a clipboard and a tight ponytail. "You the new guy?" she asked. "Yeah," Xavier said, wiping his face. "Just started." She looked him up and down. "You're putting in work. I'm Shayla, head of housekeeping." "Nice to meet you," he said, offering his hand. She shook it. "Crazy day. Miles is being Miles." Xavier raised an eyebrow. "That bad?" She hesitated, then shrugged. "Depends who you ask." Before he could ask more, a voice snapped from around the corner. "Bellhop, front desk needs you." Xavier walked out to see Miles standing with crossed arms. "Guest in room 208 needs help with bags." "Move." The way Miles said it made it clear he didn't respect the staff. He ordered, didn't ask. Xavier kept quiet and headed upstairs. Room 208 was a mess. The guest, an older woman named Mrs. Klein, apologized for the clutter. "I just need help getting these gift bags to the event room," she said kindly. "I tipped the front desk, but he said it wasn't his job." Xavier took the bags without question. Happy to help. That night, he got dinner with the rest of the evening crew in the break room. That's where he met Shayla again, along with a front desk worker named Jace and a part-time valet named Corey. "Is it always this busy?" Xavier asked. Jace laughed. "Only when Miles is running the show. He sends people home early and then complains we're short-staffed." "He sent Nico home with food poisoning," said Corey. "Didn't believe him, told him to man up or he's off the shift." Xavier frowned. "That's rough." Shayla leaned in. "You seem all right, just keep your head down." He nodded, but his mind was racing. The more he saw, the more it felt wrong. Miles wasn't just strict or rough, he was running a side game. These luxury upgrades weren't official. And worse, no one seemed to feel safe enough to speak up. Back in his small room that night, Xavier sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the ceiling. He didn't want to overreact. Maybe Miles had a reason. Maybe there was some misunderstanding. But the look on that guest's face this morning, the confusion, the way Shayla and the others talked about him, it didn't feel like a one-time thing. And he wasn't leaving until he found out how deep it went. The next morning started earlier than expected. Xavier had barely managed 4 hours of sleep when his hotel-issued pager buzzed on the nightstand. It was barely light out, but the message was clear. Lobby now. He changed quickly and headed down, stepping into a half-lit front entrance where Miles stood tapping his shoe against the tile like he'd been waiting. "We've got a tour group coming in early," Miles said, not making eye contact. 10 rooms. "Your running point on luggage." Xavier adjusted his collar. "Do we know how early they're outside?" The doors slid open and a charter bus pulled up to the curb. A group of international travelers began disembarking, some of them stretching and rubbing their eyes. Xavier hustled forward, grabbing carts and offering to help in whatever language he could manage. The group was polite, if a little dazed from travel. He noticed that no one else from the staff had been called in, not even housekeeping. It was just him, juggling carts, tags, and room keys that Miles tossed at him without explanation. By the time the 10th suitcase was delivered, Xavier's shirt was soaked through. He stopped in the back hallway to catch his breath, but he wasn't alone for long. "Did he book that group himself?" Xavier asked as Shayla walked past, carrying a linen bag over her shoulder. Shayla paused. "You mean the guy who gets a bonus based on room occupancy?" "Yeah, probably. He didn't call in extra staff. That tracks. Anyone ever report him?" She gave him a dry look. "To who? District won't touch him. He's tight with the area manager. They went to college together." Xavier leaned against the wall, thinking. That explained why nobody was stepping in. If Miles had protection higher up, then complaints would go nowhere. People like Jace and Shayla were probably convinced there was no point trying. Later, while restocking the bottled water in the guest fridges, Xavier overheard a conversation in the service hallway behind the admin office. The door was cracked open just enough. Miles was speaking to someone on a Bluetooth headset. "If they want a room with a balcony, it's a $50 upsell," he said, pacing slowly. "Don't care what the site says. They'll pay it when they're already here. It's not false advertising, it's opportunity marketing." He paused. Whoever was on the other end must have asked about the risks. "Nah, none of it hits the books. I log it under guest gratuities and just split it." Xavier stepped back, the blood in his ears suddenly loud. It wasn't just bad service Miles was skimming. He was charging guests for perks that were supposed to be standard and pocketing the difference. Worse, he had a system for it. He didn't have time to process it fully. A guest was waving him down in the hallway, asking about parking validation. He helped, smiled, and made a mental note to look into the guest gratuities field in the internal system later. That afternoon, Xavier offered to help Shayla with laundry carts just to get a look inside the staff operations area. As they weaved through the service corridors, he asked, "How long has Miles been here?" "Almost 2 years. Things were fine before him." Then turnover spiked. "Why'd you stay?" Shayla didn't answer immediately. "Because there are guests who rely on us, and because if I leave, he wins." They turned a corner and found Jace waiting with a clipboard. "Hey, we're overbooked by 2 rooms," he said. "Miles told me to move someone into the conference suite." "That's a fire code violation," Shayla said flatly. "He doesn't care. He said it's just one night." Xavier looked from one to the other. "Has he done that before?" Jace hesitated, then nodded. "He calls it creative reshuffling." The pieces were falling into place. Miles was inflating occupancy numbers while shoving people into non-guest spaces. That would explain the sudden spike in booking revenue the last few months, without a matching uptick in reviews or repeat stays. Later that evening, Xavier returned to the front desk under the pretense of needing a keycard reset. Miles was behind the counter, tapping through the reservation system. "I've got it," Miles said, barely glancing up. "Room 208, Xavier said. Miles clicked around, then stopped. "Weird, you're not in the system." Xavier forced a casual shrug. "New hire, maybe it wasn't logged." Miles narrowed his eyes. "You shouldn't be taking guests anywhere without a badge number. I was told to jump in wherever needed." "By who?" Xavier let the silence linger. Miles turned back to the screen. "Next time, wait for clearance. I don't like freelancers running around." Xavier walked away slowly, but he didn't go far. He ducked into the break room and waited until Miles left the desk unattended to grab a smoke from outside. Then he slipped behind the counter and opened the internal dashboard. The guest gratuities column was buried behind 3 layers of menus. When he finally got there, what he saw made his jaw tighten. Over the past 6 weeks, almost every third guest had a gratuity charge between $20 and $70. The notes were vague: early check-in convenience, room preference, view upgrade. None of it matched the company's official pricing structure. And all of it was marked as employee-distributed tips. Xavier backed out of the system and returned just in time to see Miles re-enter from the side door, brushing ash from his sleeve. "The guests in 313 are asking for an extra cot," Miles said. "Not our problem." "Tell them we're out. We have one in storage," Xavier replied. Miles looked irritated. "Then tell them it's a comfort surcharge, $30. Xavier didn't move. "You're charging for a cot." Miles stepped closer. "You got a problem with that?" Before Xavier could answer, Shayla appeared near the elevators, holding a clipboard. "Miles," she said, her voice firm, "you told housekeeping to skip rooms 401 and 403. They're blocked for maintenance. There's no maintenance logged." "There's no maintenance logged because there's no actual issue," he said. "They're placeholders for overflow." "I'll move people in tonight." Xavier watched Shayla's jaw tighten. "You're putting guests in unserviced rooms?" she asked. "Don't start with me," Miles warned. "You want to keep your hours." Xavier stepped forward. "Is that how you talk to your staff?" Miles turned on him. "You're a bellhop. Stay in your lane." That was it. Xavier reached into his back pocket and pulled out his real employee badge, the one with his full name, title, and corporate seal. He placed it on the counter between them. "I'm Xavier Morgan," he said quietly. "I own this company." For a beat, the lobby was silent. Miles blinked, then glanced at Shayla, then back at the badge, as if trying to find a way out of what he'd just heard. "You're joking," he said. "I'm not, and I've seen enough." Shayla didn't move. Her eyes stayed locked on Miles. "You've been running an unauthorized upcharge scheme, misusing guest rooms and threatening employees into silence. That ends now." Miles opened his mouth, but nothing came out. "Go to the back office. You're done here." And just like that, Miles walked off, the click of his shoes sounding sharper than usual as he disappeared down the hallway. Xavier turned to Shayla. "Call the regional manager. Tell him to meet me here first thing tomorrow. I want a full audit of every charge from the last 90 days. Shayla nodded, still stunned. As Xavier walked back through the lobby, guests milled about, unaware of the shift that had just occurred. But the energy among the staff was already different. Jay stood behind the desk, watching everything unfold, and gave a quiet nod. Xavier didn't acknowledge it. He just picked up the bellhop cart and wheeled it toward the elevator. He still had a job to finish. And now he was doing it with both eyes open. Xavier stood in the back office, the door shut behind him. The room was cramped, just a desk, a filing cabinet, and a humming desktop computer. He didn't sit. He scrolled through transaction logs, room assignments, and shift audits, his eyes scanning faster than he could think. A knock at the door interrupted his rhythm. "Come in," he said. Shayla stepped inside, clipboard in hand. She looked like she hadn't blinked since the confrontation. "Regional's on his way," she said. "Should be here within the hour." Xavier nodded. "Good. I'll need access to payroll records next." She handed over a paper file. "Already pulled them. Anyone else involved?" She hesitated. "Not directly. But Corey said something weird last week. Said Miles offered to bump his hours on the timesheet if he took a shift he didn't work. Thought it was a joke. Now I'm not sure." Xavier flipped through the payroll. Overtime entries were scattered in strange places. One name showed up more often than it should have: Miles's cousin, apparently a part-time concierge who hadn't been seen once since Xavier arrived. "Was this guy ever here?" Xavier asked, tapping the name. "Not since I started," Shayla said. "I assumed he worked nights." "He doesn't." He closed the file. "I need the staff in the lounge, all of them. We're resetting this place from the ground up." It took 20 minutes to gather everyone. The lounge was silent except for the soft hum of the vending machine in the corner. Housekeeping stood along one wall, front desk along another. Maintenance wasn't present. There were only 2 techs and both were off shift. Jay stood near the back, arms crossed. Corey leaned forward, elbows on his knees. No one was relaxed. Xavier stood at the front, still in uniform. "I'm not making a speech," he said. "I just want to be clear," eyes lifted. "What I saw here over the last 2 days doesn't represent this company, not remotely. And I take responsibility for letting it go on this long." Shayla glanced toward the others, lips pressed tight. "I didn't come here to scare anyone. I came because the reports didn't make sense. The numbers were up, but the complaints were rising too. You can't run a business on spreadsheets alone. You have to see the people." He paused. "You've been asked to do too much with too little. You've been made to feel like speaking up would cost you your job. That ends today." Someone shifted near the coffee machine. It was Jace. "I didn't know who you were when you showed up," he said. "But I'm glad you did. We've been drowning." Xavier nodded once. "You're not alone, and you're not invisible." The door opened quietly, and a tall man in a charcoal blazer stepped inside. The regional manager, Thomas, gave a stiff nod. "Sorry I'm late," he said. Xavier pointed to the conference room. "We'll talk in there." Thomas followed him into the room. The blinds were drawn, the table empty. "I reviewed the logs," Xavier began, not sitting. "Miles manipulated occupancy, falsified gratuities, and threatened staff." "You hired him." Thomas looked uncomfortable. "He came with excellent references. We'd worked together before, so you vouched for him." "I did, yes." Xavier leaned forward. "Then I'm holding you accountable too." Thomas blinked. "Sir, I didn't know. You didn't check. You didn't follow up when turnover doubled. You didn't investigate complaints. I thought they were isolated. They weren't." Xavier grabbed the printed report from the table and dropped it in front of him. 68 unauthorized charges over 6 weeks. 2 falsified employee names on payroll. 3 rooms held empty for cash, only walk-ins. "Do you know what that is?" Thomas shifted in his chair. "Fraud." Xavier didn't respond. "I'll accept whatever consequence you feel is appropriate," Thomas said quietly. "You're on probation. Effective immediately. Your district oversight privileges are suspended. You'll report directly to me for the next 90 days. Thomas nodded. "Understood." Xavier opened the door. The staff outside looked up. "Mandatory meeting tomorrow morning," he said. "We rebuild together." The team slowly dispersed, some nodding, some quiet. Shayla stayed behind. "You sure you want to stay until then?" she asked. "I'm not leaving until this place runs right. I've got a room booked and a cart full of luggage to move." She cracked a tired smile. "You might be the only owner I've ever seen mop their own lobby." Xavier looked at her. "You've been carrying this place. That's over." That night, he didn't go back to his original room. He moved into the smallest one on the 3rd floor, the one where the couple had been crammed in without proper cleaning the night before. He personally vacuumed the carpet, replaced the linens, and scrubbed the bathroom to standard. Then he sat on the edge of the bed and called his executive assistant. "We need to audit all 17 properties," he said. "Start with the ones where turnover's above 20%. Pull customer complaints, cross-reference gratuity patterns. If anything looks off, I want eyes on the ground." The next morning, the lobby was quiet when he came down, but not empty. Jace was already at the desk, sorting key cards. Corey was outside, wiping down the valet stand. Shayla stood near the elevator, clipboard in hand, directing 2 new housekeepers he hadn't seen before. Relief staff, probably called in from a sister location. He walked up to Jace. "Can you do me a favor?" Xavier asked. Jace looked up. "Sure, print a list of every guest who checked in yesterday. I want to personally call them." Jace paused, to apologize, to thank them, and explain the changes coming. He took the list and made every call himself from the back office. Some guests were surprised, others appreciative. A few were skeptical, but all of them listened. By noon, the new interim front desk lead arrived, someone from headquarters. No fanfare, just a calm, competent presence. Miles's office was cleared out, his name scrubbed from the system. The staff watched it all with quiet relief, like a storm had passed and left the building intact. After lunch, Xavier asked Shayla to walk him through a full housekeeping cycle. He stripped beds, refilled supplies, checked shower temperatures. It wasn't for show. He needed to understand exactly how long each task took, how many rooms one person could handle per shift, what tools made the job easier or harder. As they walked back down the hallway, she glanced over. "Why are you doing this yourself?" Because I can't fix what I don't understand. That evening, he met again with the staff in the lounge. No clipboard, no suit, just coffee and chairs. We're hiring 3 more people, he said. 2 for housekeeping, 1 for front desk. Until then, we're reducing the room block. No overbooking, Corey raised a hand. What about rates? They stay flat. No hidden fees, no view charges. We offer what's listed, nothing more, nothing less. Jace leaned forward. What if people push back, ask for perks, offer them service? Real service, not tricks. The meeting ended without applause, just nods. Understanding, ground beneath their feet. That night, Xavier walked the halls one last time before heading up. The lobby was quiet, the staff alert but calm, no tension pressing behind their eyes. No one looking over their shoulder. He stepped outside and looked up at the sign. The name still shone bright. It always had. But now, it finally meant something again. Xavier stretched his back as he pushed the linen cart down the 3rd-floor hallway. The hallway smelled faintly of citrus and fresh detergent. The soft hum of vacuuming echoed from one of the rooms ahead, where Shayla was training the 2 new housekeepers. He paused at room 312, knocked twice, and slipped in quietly to restock the towels and toiletries. The guest was gone for the day, and the room was already made. It had been 4 days since he'd revealed who he was. 4 long, exacting days of rebuilding. Not from scratch, the bones of the place were solid, but from a culture that had quietly rotted under the surface. The unauthorized charges were gone, the fake payroll entries erased, and the regional manager's oversight was now being reviewed by headquarters. But removing a problem didn't fix the damage. It just stopped the bleeding. Xavier didn't go back to corporate. He stayed. Each day, he worked a different shift, mornings with housekeeping, evenings with front desk, overnights reviewing booking patterns and shift logs. He took notes on what tools were missing, where time was wasted, what parts of the system still made things harder than they should be. He didn't make speeches or hold daily pep talks. He just listened. On Thursday afternoon, he joined Corey in the back lot, where the valet station sat under a metal awning with peeling paint. Corey had a hose in his hand, rinsing down the concrete where an oil leak had stained the pavement. "You ever get back up on this side?" Xavier asked, stepping around the puddle. Corey shook his head. "Not unless there's a wedding or something. I cover it solo, even in the rain, especially in the rain." Xavier looked up at the rusted hinge on the awning, then back at the cracked pavement. "This whole setup needs work." Corey leaned on the wall. "I mean, it's fine, I've worked worse. You shouldn't have to settle for worse." Corey didn't respond right away. Finally, he said, "Truth is, I was looking for other jobs before you showed up. Thought maybe I'd try delivery, but now." He trailed off. Xavier nodded once. That was all he needed to hear. Inside, Shayla was filling out a supply requisition form when he caught up with her. She looked up from the clipboard. "You're about to tell me we're out of something," she said. "No," he replied. "I'm about to ask how much it would cost to replace the vacuums." She blinked. "All of them. They're loud, heavy, and inefficient. If we're giving people more rooms to clean, we need to make it easier." She picked up another sheet of paper. "I've got prices from 2 vendors. Send both to my office. We'll order today." She tapped her pen against the clipboard. "You're not doing this for PR, are you?" "I'm doing it because I should have started here a long time ago." That evening, he joined Jace behind the front desk. It was a steady shift, 3 check-ins, 1 room change, and a family asking if they could store luggage overnight due to a late flight. Jace handled it all smoothly. He moved with quiet confidence, his voice calm but warm, his posture no longer tense. "You always this organized?" Xavier asked. Jace smiled faintly. "Only when I'm not being told to fake bookings." "Have you ever thought about management?" Jace looked at him. "I'm not sure I'm the type." "What does that mean?" "I don't talk much. I don't like telling people what to do." "You don't need to talk much. You just need to see people clearly." Jace didn't say anything else, but his eyes lingered on Xavier a moment longer before returning to the screen. After the desk closed for the night, Xavier walked the halls again. He passed a guest who stopped him. "You helped us with our bags on Monday," the man said. "I just wanted to say things feel different here now. Staff seems happier, feels calmer." "Appreciate that," Xavier said. "We've made a few changes." The man smiled. "Well, whatever you did, it worked." Xavier thanked him and continued on. When he reached the back stairwell, he found Shayla and the two new hires sitting on the steps, taking a break. They were mid-conversation, laughing about something he hadn't caught. "You three doing all right?" he asked. Shayla nodded. "We're good." Just explaining the towel shortage protocol to them. "You still short?" "Not anymore. Delivery came in this morning, first on-time shipment in weeks." He sat on the step across from them. "Tomorrow, we're getting a new cart system, smaller wheels, easier to turn. I tested one at another property last year." One of the new housekeepers, a woman named Marisol, tilted her head. "You test carts? I do now." They all laughed. The following morning, Xavier met with Shayla and Jace in the staff lounge. He laid out a printed schedule. "Starting next week, we're piloting rotating shifts. No one works more than 6 days straight, and cross-training is voluntary, not required." Shayla scanned the page. "That's going to cut into coverage." "I know. I'm bringing in 2 floaters from another property until hiring is finished." "You'll get support." Jace looked up. "You're really not letting this slide, are you?" "No," Xavier said, "and neither should you." At noon, Thomas arrived from headquarters. His posture was less rigid than before. He sat across from Xavier in the small meeting room, his hands folded. "I've reviewed the audits," he said. "We missed a lot." "You did," Xavier replied. "I want to earn that trust back if you'll let me. You're going to start by shadowing the remaining properties next week, quietly, not as a manager, as staff, like I did." Thomas nodded slowly. "Understood. You'll report back with what you see, not what you assume." They shook hands and Thomas left without ceremony. By the end of the week, the team had stabilized. Guests were checking in with smiles instead of confusion. Staff moved with steadier steps, no longer bracing for sudden rule changes or impossible requests. The tension that had once hung in the air like smoke was gone. On Sunday morning, Xavier stood in the lobby with his bag packed. Shayla approached, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "You heading out finally?" "I am." She looked around. "You trust us to hold it down?" "I do, but that's not why I'm leaving." "Then why?" "Because I don't want to be the reason things work. I want the structure to be strong enough without me here." She nodded once. "You built that?" "No," he said. "We did." He turned to leave but stopped before reaching the door. "Shayla, one more thing." She raised her eyebrows. "I'm sending someone from HQ to talk with you next week about a new role. You're already doing most of it. Might as well get the title and pay to match." She was quiet for a beat. "You sure I'm the right person?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He stepped outside into the early light. The awning over the valet station had been freshly painted. The sidewalk was clean. The Bellhop cart was parked straight, wheels locked, ready for the next guest. Xavier stood for a moment, watching the front entrance open for a family that had just arrived. Corey offered them water bottles. Jace smiled as he handed over room keys. Shayla walked past the windows, clipboard in hand, already organizing the next shift. He didn't need to go back inside. He'd seen enough.